Good morning, students.
Good morning, ma'am.
I'm happy to see you so active and lively. Do you think we should celebrate?
Yes, ma'am.
We are going to celebrate because we are alive.
Sure, ma'am.
Can you tell me who was the first surgeon to perform a heart surgery?
Dr. Christian Barnard was the first surgeon who performed a heart surgery in South Africa.
Was it successful?
It was successful, but the patient died.
Dr. Christian Barnard is a famous surgeon who performed the world's first heart transplant operation. In December 1967, he led a team of 20 surgeons in replacing the heart of Louis Washkansky, an incurably ill South African grocer, with a heart a fatally injured accident victim. Although the operation was a success, Washkansky died of pneumonia. In the lesson which we are about to read, he gives importance to what is left and not what is lost. The joy of living is the celebration of being alive. Today, we shall read the lesson in celebration of being alive, which is a speech made by him. My gloomy thoughts probably stem from an accident I had a few years ago. 1 minute I was crossing the street with my wife after a lovely meal together, and the next minute a car had hit me and knocked me into my wife. She was thrown into the other line and struck by a car coming from the opposite direction. During the next few days in the hospital, I experienced not only agony and fear, but also anger. I could not understand why my wife and I had to suffer. I had 11 broken ribs and a perforated lung. My wife had a badly fractured shoulder. Over and over, I asked myself, why should this happen to us? I had work to do after all. There were patients waiting for me to operate on them. My wife had a young baby who needed her care. My father, had he still been alive, would have said, "My son, it's God's will." That's the way God tests you. Suffering ennobles you, makes you a better person. But as a doctor, I see nothing noble in a patient thrashing around in a sweat-soaked bed, mind clouded in agony. Nor can I see any nobility in the crying of a lonely child in the ward at night. I had my first introduction to the suffering of children when I was a little boy. One day, my father showed me a half-eaten moldy biscuit with 2 tiny tooth marks in it. And he told me about my brother who had died several years earlier. He told me about the suffering of this child who had been born with an abnormal heart. If he had been born today, probably someone could have corrected that heart problem. But in those days, they didn't have sophisticated heart surgery. And this moldy biscuit was the last biscuit my brother had eaten before his death. As a doctor, I've always found the suffering of children particularly heartbreaking, especially because of their total trust in doctors and nurses. They believe you are going to help them. If you can't, they accept their fate. They go through mutilating surgery and afterwards they don't complain. One morning, several years ago, I witnessed what I call the Grand Prix of Cape Town's Red Cross Children's Hospital. It opened my eyes to the fact that I was missing something in all my thinking about suffering, something basic that was full of solace for me. What happened there that morning was that a nurse had left a breakfast trolley unattended, and very soon this trolley was commandeered by an intrepid crew of two, a driver and a mechanic. The mechanic provided motor power by galloping along behind the trolley with his head down, while the driver, seated on the lower deck, held on with one hand and steered by scraping his foot on the floor. The choice of roles was easy because the mechanic was totally blind and the driver had only one arm. They put on quite a show that day, judging by the laughter and shouts of encouragement from the rest of the patients. It was much better entertainment than anything anyone puts on at the Indianapolis 500 car race. There was a grand finale of scattered plates and silverware before the nurse and the ward sister caught up with them, scolded them, and put them back to bed. We have just read the lesson. Can you answer some questions? What happened to Dr. Christian Bernard and his wife while crossing the road?
A car had hit him and knocked him down. His wife was thrown down by a car coming in the opposite direction.
What were his thoughts in the hospital?
He experienced fear and anger and thought why it should happen to him.
What would his father have said?
If his father had been alive, he would have said that it was God's will. Suffering ennobles you and makes you a better person.
Did Christian Bernard agree with his father's views on suffering?
He saw nothing noble in his patient's agony. There was nothing noble in a lonely child crying at night.
When did he first experience suffering?
One day his father showed him a biscuit which was half eaten by his brother who died of an abnormal heart because they did not have sophisticated heart surgery.
How did the doctor change his views on suffering?
One day, doctor witnessed what he called a Grand Prix of Red Cross Children's Hospital, which opened his eyes to the fact that he was missing something in all his thinking about suffering.
My father, had he still been alive, would have said, "It is God's will." The above sentence can be said in another way. If my father had been alive, he would have said that it was God's will. Notice the verb in the past perfect tense.
If my father had been alive, he would have said that it was God's will.
If my father were alive, he would say it was God's will. The verb is in the simple past tense.
If my father were alive, he would say that it was God's will.
If my father is alive, he will say it is God's will. The verb is in the simple present tense.
If my father is alive, he will say it is God's will.
If you run fast, you will reach the shop. The verb is in the simple present tense.
If you run fast, you will reach the shop.
If you ran fast, you would reach the shop. The verb is in the simple past tense.
If you ran fast, you would reach the shop.
If you had run fast, you would have reached the shop. The verb is in the past perfect tense.
If you had run fast, you would have reached the shop.
If you come early, I will show you the book. The verb is in the simple present tense.
If you come early, I will show you the book.
If you came early, I would show you the book. The verb is in the simple past tense.
If you came early, I would show you the book.
If you had come early, I would have shown you the book. The verb is in the past perfect tense.
If you had come early, I would have shown you the book.
If it rains, we will have water. The verb is in the simple present tense.
If it rains, we will have water.
If it rained, we would have water. The verb is in the simple past tense.
If it rained, we would have water.
If it had rained, we would have had water. The verb is in the past perfect tense.
If it had rained, we would have had water.
If I have the money, I will buy the car. The verb is in the simple present tense.
If I have the money, I will buy the car.
If I had the money, I would buy the car. The verb is in the simple past tense.
If I had the money, I would buy the car.
If I had the money, I would have bought the car. The verb is in the past perfect tense.
If I had the money, I would have bought the car.
Let us now spell and pronounce the new words in the lesson. Opposite, the other direction.
Opposite the other direction.
Perforated, to make a hole through.
Perforated to make a hole through.
Sophisticated, highly developed.
Sophisticated, highly developed.
Grand Prix, an international motor car race.
Grand Prix, an international motor car race.
Commandeered, to seize for public use.
Commandeered to seize for public use.
Finale, the last item.
Finale, the last item.
We have some functional grammar here. I shall repeat it for you. If you come early, I will show you the book. If you came early, I would show you the book. If you had come early, I would have shown you the book. we shall have some questions for homework. What happened to Dr. Christian Barnard while crossing the road? What are his views on suffering? When did Christian Barnard experience suffering? How did Dr. Christian Barnard change his view on suffering? Find the new words with the same meaning. Perforate, moldy, intrepid. And here are some spelling and pronunciation. Moldy, agony, swept, soaked, mutilating, shoulder, surgery, abnormal, solace, commandeered, mechanic, crew. If I write the essay well, I will win a prize. The verb is in the simple present tense. If I wrote the essay well, I would win a prize. The verb is in the simple past tense. If I had written the essay well, I would have won a prize. The verb is in the past perfect tense. If he studies hard, he will win. He will come first in class. The verb is in the simple present tense. If he studied hard, he would come first in class. The verb is in the simple past tense. If he studied hard, he would have come first in class. The verb is in the past perfect tense. Today, we have studied some structures in functional grammar. I am sure all of you have understood the lesson well. In the next class, we shall do a few more structures in functional grammar. Thank you.